Monaco 64 here, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. It's June 21st, 2018. Today I'm going to interview EOSUK.io, their block producer candidate from Nottingham in England. So before I start asking them some questions about it, for my viewers who don't know, I've been involved in EOS mainly because I been posting on Steemit for almost 2 years, and Dan Larimer, who's involved in EOS, started Steemit, and it just got me interested as well in EOS. So Roger and Jim, nice to have you here. And can you guys, hi, can you tell us how you guys got involved in EOS?
Sure, yeah, so EOS UK is our block producer candidacy name, and behind that is my company, Advanta Productions, which is web app development and internet consultancy business that I started in 2004. So it was only a matter of time before I came across Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, and like a lot of people, I decided to invest in it and got involved with a group of people, crypto enthusiasts, our crypto club. Hi guys. And yeah, we just eventually came across EOS, and it just seemed to address all of the criticisms that people have about Bitcoin, Ethereum, and we talk about EOS as being like the 4th generation cryptocurrency, and every criticism that comes with the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd generation cryptocurrencies is kind of looked to have been addressed with EOS. So and Jim and I met about 4 years ago through the local running club, and we're running along together because, of course, we're both elite athletes.
Yeah, as you can see. One's a bit more elite than the other these days.
And yeah, Jim was telling me about some SharePoint woes that he'd got at the time with the academy that you were working for. And so I thought you should come and work with us, Jim, and that's where our journey into it started. And we thought that EOS, the block producers, were going to be Microsoft, Apple, all of these really big companies, and because we were doing some staking, some altcoins and things, and just running the little wallets, and we looked at EOS and we said, oh, perhaps we can stake this, and our guru Damo, he was saying, oh, don't be silly, Roger, it's going to be these huge companies involved. And when the first list came out of block producer candidates,
I had a look, didn't I?
Yeah.
I looked on EOS Go and I did some research, and I was amazed to find people posting on there a Facebook picture with their cat, it almost seemed like, and it was like, and this wasn't that long ago. And then Roger got interested in it, and I mean I'm a teacher by background, and I've not got any technical knowledge at all. I sort of try and bring the sort of plain speaking English to this side of the business, and Roger just sort of said, I've had a look at this and we're going all in, we're going to do it. I'm like, okay, so that's what we did, and that's what we sort of been working towards ever since.
Yeah, because I mean,
when was that? Because EOS started like June last year, didn't it?
Yeah. So I think, well, in terms of the timeline, I think I bought my first EOS around about October, and so at some point after that, when we started looking at the block producers, and then I think we officially declared, I think it was in February, wasn't it?
Yeah,
this year.
Like
so
we were working on it before Christmas. And we declared, and then we went to a social meetup in London,
the EOS London,
an EOS London meetup, and then we sort of met a few characters from there, and we just kept going, haven't we? And then we just kept going and going and going, and until someone tells us to stop, we'll just keep going, and hopefully it's going to be positive for us.
I mean, I've sort of been delivering internet solutions. I started working in the internet full time in 1995, working for an internet backbone provider, Zara Networks, and I was like their first employee after they set the company up, and I was out selling internet connections to internet service providers and banks and people like that. So that's how I sort of cut my teeth on the internet, and then went on to start designing and selling internet solutions. So for me, I was like, EOS really, it's just another internet solution that needs setting up. I mean, obviously, it's a lot more complicated, and We've had to get in some really technical, skilled guys over and above sort of who we'd normally work with. But at the end of the day, it is just another internet solution that's planning out, and it needs doing properly, and it needs delivering. And I thought, well, we can do this. And then when I started learning about, obviously I got into cryptocurrency because of the whole economic side of it, which is perhaps more your
that's right. I mean,
your bag, and the sort of the unfairness in the way that we've been sold the lie of fiat currency. And so that's really kind of where I started getting very interested, because it was two things coming together that I really liked the idea of, because I've loved mucking about with cables and screwdrivers and things like that ever since I was a kid. And then to bring this side into it as well, the monetary side of it, it just really captured me. And so I was like, right, let's do it. Let's go all in. And here we are. Yes, trying to get votes.
Can you explain to the viewers exactly how EOS will be able to make things, better for the system, the monetary system, decentralization, and what it actually means, for the internet?
Yeah. Well, so economically, I mean, I am no economic expert. Okay, so I've got to say that up front. But the thing that really appeals to me, I mean, I watched a video by Dan Larimer where he did his speech at Virginia Tech University, and he did a segment on a world with no taxes. And I think that that demonstrates the mechanism really well. So perhaps if anybody hasn't seen that, it'd be worth digging that out and having a look, perhaps linking to it. But it explains where the inflation. So basically, you've got a fixed amount of coins, which is 1 billion coins, plus a few extras, but that's due to rounding or whatever. But and then you've got the annual inflation of 5% maximum, and these coins are this 5%. They're minted every time a block producer creates a block. Actually, the block producers themselves only get 1% of this 5%, and the rest of it goes into the worker proposal fund, which is a way that people can suggest that money gets spent on things that are perhaps good for the network or good for the world, or could be anything.
Developing dApps and stuff, or
maybe if it's considered. It could be anything. If people vote for it, then it can be actioned. But it might not necessarily be dApp development unless it was perhaps something specific to EOS, the network as a whole. So it's basically this inflation, this 5% a year, is the only way that new EOS coins are going to come into existence, as opposed to quantitative easing, for example, in fiat, where pick a number.
You just type it on the keyboard.
How many shall we print off today? And it's like, well, I didn't even know that kind of stuff went on until a couple of years ago. I'm 48 years old. I can't believe I lived my whole life without knowing that.
And they call it, they don't call it money printing. They call it quantitative easing. They also, the Bank of England sometimes calls it asset purchases, which is, they make it seem really technical, but it's just, in the end of the day, just
printing money. Yeah, exactly. So, so the creation of the new EOS coins, tokens, comes about through expression of value. It's like there's electricity, there's equipment, same kind of concept as Bitcoin, mining, but it's just done in a slightly more controlled fashion, whereby the block producers are chosen by the token holders, and that's a whole other sort of topic. But rather than mining Bitcoin, where you can just go and buy a machine and join a pool and get a share of the rewards, but there's an expression of value. Value is being deployed in converting that electricity and that hardware into that token. So perhaps in a nutshell, that's how it works. I don't know if that makes any sense.
What about what are you think will be the main advantages of EOS as compared to Ethereum and Bitcoin? The scalability, the throughput. Can you,
Yeah, exactly. So basically, you've got the transactions capability. In our presentation that we did at one of our first meetups, Introduction to EOS, we take people through the fact that Bitcoin is sort of maxing out at like 3 transactions per second, and as the first generation blockchain, second generation blockchain being Ethereum, sort of maxing out around 20, 30 transactions per second, depending on how many crypto kitties are being minted at any one time. And then sort of third generation blockchain being Steemit and BitShares, and they're sort of operating at, was it about 1,000?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So it's 1,000 transactions per second, and then obviously Bitcoin got the EOS got the potential to be, you know, hundreds of thousands and millions of transactions per second. And so if you look at that in relation to something like the number of likes that Facebook has per second, Jim, is it 6,000?
6,000. When there's tweets, wasn't it? 6,000 tweets a second.
6,000 tweets per second, you know. Yeah. So if you were considering a tweet was a transaction, then, you know, the first, second, and third generation blockchains can't really cope. Things like Visa, you know, you said 10,000 to 20,000 transactions per second. And, you know, like currency pair trading at sort of 100,000 transactions per second just for one currency pair.
Yeah.
So the systems weren't ready to run what we're currently using on the blockchain, and so that's where EOS enters the game and, you know, potentially promises to deliver that platform that can scale massively. And of course, the other main aspect or benefit to EOS is that it's free to use for the user. So, like when you're on Steemit, for example, that, you know, that's actually a blockchain viewer.
Yeah,
Steemit. Yeah, and you know, it's free for you to use as the end user, as opposed to Ethereum or Bitcoin, where, you know, you've got the
gas.
Well, yeah, you've got the gas, and, you know, the actual underlying transaction cost of Bitcoin is, I'm sure I've heard it's $150 per transaction. Now, that's not what it costs you as a user. You obviously you pay your fees, which is a percentage of whatever, but that's the cost that's going into running that infrastructure. And what EOS has done is they've managed to scale so massively through, you know, block producers all over the world having nodes, as it brings that cost per transaction down to such a fraction, yeah, that it's effectively free, and you just access it by owning the token.
Yeah.
And so if you're a dApp developer, you own your tokens, and that gives you access to computing power and RAM and storage later on, so that you can run your application on the EOS blockchain, and your users will get it for free.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I thought EOS could be interesting, because I've been using Steemit, and I post all my videos there as well. I've written there as well, and it works very well. And EOS is supposed to be even better than Steemit.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, Steemit is social media on the blockchain. People don't even realize that it's on the blockchain. Some people that use it. So it's going to be in the future as well. You won't have to know what EOS does. It's going to be part of the engine or the infrastructure of the internet, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, the end goal for us is for end users to have never heard of EOS, and they don't need to have heard of EOS. It's not, you don't need to know if your social media platform is using EOS. I mean, you know, as a less techie teacher, I don't care. As long as it works and I'm not having to pay for it, I really don't care. Yeah. And that's the idea that these dApps will be produced using the EOS infrastructure. People won't know that. Yeah. That's what, and that's how we're going to move this forward into sort of enterprise level blockchain, where, you know, enterprise ready blockchain. That's what we're after.
It's a bit like when you switch the light on, you don't really care which electricity company is providing you your power, or when you go onto a website, you don't need to know what hosting company that website provider is using. You know, it will just be a dApp that you're using that'll be running on EOS, and you won't necessarily know.
Yes.
Great benefit for token holders is this notion of being able to rent your tokens out, as well as that's another added piece of economics on top of just holding. You can actually there's going to be a system where you can rent out tokens, so you don't have to sell, but you can still get a revenue off your token, which is quite,
because a lot of tokens are going to be like being used already, so the circulation is actually going to be less than 1 billion, right? So people are going to want to borrow or rent that.
Yeah, because if say Facebook decided tomorrow that they wanted to try and run Facebook on top of EOS, wouldn't that be great? Then they'd have to acquire quite a lot of token in order to get the compute power and stuff that they'd need to run it. I mean, they'd need a lot. Yeah. And the only place they're going to get that from is somebody who already owns EOS tokens. So they'd have to buy them, or they could rent them. And so if you've got a company that wants to come to market, perhaps experiment launching a product on EOS, but not want to invest in actually acquiring the tokens, they could rent them and give their app opportunity to evolve and decide if it's going to, if it has any legs, if you like, before they start buying EOS tokens to run it with.
And that's the beauty of it, isn't it? If you say you're a young dApp developer who hasn't got, because of you're a millennial or whatever, and you haven't got access to the capital, you can get into the EOS blockchain quickly because there's this notion of be able to rent rather than having to buy it. Yeah. And so you can get in there quickly. Then you can start receiving revenue. If your idea is working properly, you can then get revenue, and that gives you a chance to you can be an early adopter. You can get on there quickly. The idea of the chain is that it's lowering the hurdles, if you like, to get on there and to get things started. So that's hopefully benefiting the economy as a whole.
I mean, if you've got a great idea for an app, you could obviously go out and just host it on some quite cheap hosting, but if it suddenly took off, you'd have to move that. So if you could basically get access to the EOS global computer that us block providers enable. And you can start off by having access to a little bit of it, and it can grow almost infinitely without you ever having to move your app to any other platform. So,
what about the airdrops? Can you explain to the viewers how that also benefits the holders of EOS tokens?
Yeah, I mean, airdrops are fascinating, and EOSUKIO, they have saying, "Oh, everybody loves an airdrop," and it's true because it is just like free money coming in because. Whereas an app developer wanted to raise venture capital, say, to fund their new project, if they just create a token and airdrop it to everybody that already owns EOS tokens, then those people who get the tokens will start trading it, and it will they will decide its value. And if you're the airdropper and you've kept a percentage of those tokens, they are then, worth an amount.
And it will help you develop the project.
Exactly. You could start, as long as you don't go and dump it all at once, then, they could start introducing those tokens into the market and getting, revenue coming in that's going to help them with the development costs.
Again, that's lowering the barriers to entry, isn't it? The same with the rental system. If you airdrop, you can actually start to self-fund your project. Yeah. And that's the beauty of it. And token holders are happy because they get what they see as free money. It's only free money if the dApp's any good and it's actually worth something. If it's worth something, then it's worth something. But if it's not, then it's not. So
there's no loss. There's no risk.
There's no risk.
And it helps circumvent also the regulators because it's not a security, is it?
Well.
That's a great question. A great question. Yeah. But anyway, I wanted to ask you as well. The blockchain was validated on June 10th when they got up to the 15%. Well, 15.01%. Can you tell us how it's going and what do you think has been the strength so far and the weaknesses of the system?
Yeah, sure. So. Wow, it's quite a controversial area, really, the whole voting, because big token holders, the whales, if you like, with big bags of tokens are pretty much able to come in and make a block producer in one vote. So one of the things that we have a campaign on at the moment to encourage token holders to make sure they vote their full 30 tokens. And also not necessarily just dumping them on the top 30 who are already, in the game, to try and keep EOS decentralized. It is decentralized at the moment. That is to be stressed. However, if people keep following the same patterns that they're exhibiting already in these early stages, then what's going to happen is, those tokens are all going to sort of gravitate towards the top, and there is a bit of a worry there at the moment that things might start becoming less decentralized. So in conjunction with the block producers, we are in the middle of or about to start a campaign now to ensure EOS stays decentralized by encouraging token holders to to spread their votes around a little bit more, geographically disperse their choice of block producer candidates, and look at some of the developing nations as well, and wouldn't it be great to have a block producer in Cambodia and Romania, and just spread it around, really, because if there is a geographical issue or an environmental issue, and it focuses on one of the countries where there's a lot of block producers, then that could be an issue. So, and one of the strengths really of EOS is the fact that we regularly, all as block producers, get together. And I was on a call last night with this group, and then yesterday we were the main group were together on a Zoom call, and I've seen these calls. We've been on over 100 block producers there, so you've got one person from each representing. And if you think about that in terms of the current political framework, I mean,
there isn't any other. I say this. I can't think of any other project that can have that has the worldwide cooperation that this does.
Yeah.
And I think that is such a strength. And I think the token holders need to realise that it is such a strength that these people from right, we're on the call yesterday, and something will be said, and someone will say, "Oh, can somebody translate that to Chinese?" And somebody go, "Yeah," and that happens. And I can't, in history, I mean, I am a history teacher, I can't think of any other project that has had such a worldwide. I know we've now got the technology to enable that, so it's probably not a fair analogy, but I can't see anything where national borders are broken down quite so dramatically.
I remember watching when they actually voted to go. And I was watching that, and there's a Chinese guy in his car, and he was translating in English. It looked like disorganized, but it wasn't. It worked.
Star translator. I mean, we were there and on that call, and I was actually at the airport picking you up from the Tulip conference at San Francisco. So I'm in the coffee shop at the airport typing go, But at that moment when it was go, it was, I had goosebumps. I really did. It's just such a huge thing. And when people talk, you go on Reddit or whatever, and somebody there going, "Oh, FUD," and it's like, you have no idea what's actually happening here. The world is changing right before your face, and
but also it is just so early. I mean, I think
it is very early. Yeah.
The thing to come from this is that it was launched, and it's sturdy, and it's going, and it's happening. Yes, there has been a freeze, and we can talk about the various issues. But the fact is that it's robust. It's still going. There's going to be a call again at 1 o'clock UTC, 2 o'clock our time. We'll be on that call, and we'll see this worldwide coming together of these people who are producing this thing that is working for. It's going to be working for the good of for what we hope will be the new economies moving forward.
And the next generations.
And the next generation. And the fact that it is a governed blockchain is really important. People seem to be getting... Roger might contradict me here, but I find it very hard to understand when I'm looking at the Telegram channels, not being as technical as some other people, where the people are moaning that accounts have been frozen and say how terrible it is, and that's centralisation and it's censorship. It isn't that at all. It's a governed blockchain acting against what they believe is bad actors, and if those bad actors want to challenge that, then they can.
Is that accounts on Telegram that they?
No. So I was going to say, are you aware of this?
No, I didn't. I wasn't.
It's a landmark moment, really, for EOS and the governed blockchain. So basically, there were 7 accounts, so EOS accounts, that were frozen on Monday, I think it was, by sort of arbitration. And basically, what's happened is these accounts have been highlighted as extorting money from
phishing sites.
Yeah, scam basically.
So what do you mean by EOS accounts? Like block producer candidates, or?
No. So customers' accounts, EOS token holders' accounts. So wallets, if you like,
I see.
for want of a better phrase. But because EOS uses human readable account names instead of wallet addresses, everything's based on a 12-character account name at the moment. So yeah, basically these 7 accounts it was that have been subject to an arbitration ruling, which it's not really a ruling actually, it's not the right phrase, but an arbitration assessment, if you like, which then 2/3 of the block producers, active block producers, decided to agree with and carry out and froze these accounts.
Oh, I see.
And so what that means is that the people who've lost their money, they know that that money's not going to go anywhere else. It's not going to be transferred into Bitcoin and gone. And the person or people that own those 7 accounts have now got the opportunity to try and make restitution, if you like, and prove that they are entitled to the tokens that are inside that account. And
what were they doing wrong?
I'm not actually sure of the details, but they'd scammed about 1,700 tokens out of some people.
Oh, I see.
And so there's the EOS 911 group where you can report these things, and then there's also the ECAF, which is the EOS Core Arbitration Forum, who sort of assess this. And as EOS token holders, we all agree that we'll abide by, when we use the network, use is agreement that we'll abide by the rulings, or not the rulings, it's the wrong word, so we mustn't use that word, but the assessments, if you like, of the arbitrators. So that's what Jim was referring to.
All right, okay. So, I just wanted to ask you now to finish up how people can go on about voting, and like the fact that people can vote as many times as they want. Like, if you vote for only one block producer with all your tokens, then you can go and vote for, change that vote and vote for 30 or 15. And that it can be done anytime you want, right?
Yeah, exactly. So in order to vote, your tokens have to be staked. Okay, so when the network was launched, all of the tokens were staked so that people could vote to unlock the network. And staking is what you would do if you were a developer and you needed access to the network. But in order to vote, you have to have your tokens staked. And so there's lots of tools available now to let people vote. There's a web portal, which uses the Scatter plugin and authentication. And we've also got tools on our website, and there's a tool people can download, like a desktop voting tool. Basically each token entitles you to 30 votes for one token. So the idea being that you can choose your 21 block producers and 9 block producer candidates that will be your choice of standby block producers. So at any point you can go and change that vote. And this is where it differs from the current political system, where if you don't vote, you're in effect voting with the majority. And what I learned is that, thinking about all of this, is that you don't realise necessarily that you didn't want to vote for the majority until that's happened.
Yeah.
And then 4 years goes by before you have an opportunity to actually do something about it. Whereas with EOS, you might decide that you want to change your vote or place your vote, and you can just go and do that at any point. And the voting calculation, if you like, is redone every round of block production, which is 2 minutes and 3 seconds. So in theory, this vote can change. The order of the block producers, the elected block producers, can change every 2 minutes and 3 seconds for the end of time, until the end of time. There is no time limit on when you have to vote. So from that point of view, it really is a fantastic system, because if you decide you don't like the way a block producer is behaving or performing their duties, or you can just go and unvote them and change your vote for somebody else, and it will almost have instant effect if everybody else agrees that way, or you've got a big enough holding to affect it directly.
But it does only work if the community is active in that. Otherwise, the people who hold the most keep the most, like the system we've got at the moment, and it doesn't actually challenge that. So the notion of when you vote, voting for more than one, this notion of voting for 30 is really important, because you've got to...
At least 15.
At least 15. Dan Laren was on a call yesterday, and he sort of said, you've got to vote for at least 15 to protect the Byzantium attack, whatever that is.
Byzantium problem. I forgot.
Yeah,
I always get mixed up.
So it's really important that people understand that you know, it's not like a conventional vote where you vote for one person and you sort of like rallying behind. We're so used to in our partisan politics, especially in this country, I suppose in America as well, that getting behind one person and one thing and rallying, it doesn't work like that. The idea is that this is an idea to the checks and balances only work if there is enough standby block producers who are ready to move in to challenge and to call into account the people who are the block producers. So it only works if there's enough people voting for a wider spread of block producers to protect your investment.
Well, that's why it's
I'm voting.
Decentralized, right?
Yeah.
So to wrap, sorry.
I'd say if anything happens with any one of the top 21, then within an hour, one of the standbys will have come in and taken their place, albeit maybe temporarily if that 21, gets their act together and comes back in again. But so it should keep running forever.
Great. So to wrap up, can you tell the viewers how to get involved with EOSUK.io, where they should look, your website, and how, why you think, we should vote for you? I personally think we should, because I've looked at your website and you guys look serious and you're really behind it.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much for your support there. And what we're trying to do is, we're trying to bridge that gap between. This is a very complex area at EOS, and that's before you get into all the technical cryptographic stuff. That's just like all the moving parts is complicated. So we're trying to bridge the gap between, those technical people through us to lay people, if you like, so that. Because it's such an important part of the future, everybody is represented, and so we can lobby on behalf of lay people, normal people like us. We consider ourselves. Somebody said to us, we're working class bros. We're quite like that, representing. And if anybody wants to get involved in EOS, if they think they can lend anything technically, either in the political aspect, the economic aspect, copywriting, anything, if they think they can help, then get in touch, because we do need a lot of help. And the best way to get in touch with us is through our contact, through the website. Every page on the website, EOSUK.io, has all of our contact details on it, including a phone number. So UK landline phone number, which we'll ring here if you call it, and we'll try and answer all the calls personally. So
check how many of the block producers have got a phone number you can call.
Yeah, I don't think there are many, are there?
I don't think there are many at all.
No. So we're trying to, set new standards for transparency and approachability, and just, not speaking binary. We're trying to speak in English and just get this thing moving for everybody. And So we've got all of the social channels set up, Telegram being the main one, where we announce all of our details first, anything that's happening.
And I just want to add, it's not for this call because obviously we've gone on too long, but we have got EOS University, which is going to benefit from the block producer rewards once we get into that position. And I'd love to come on and have a chat with you about what that means and that project at another time. But there's some exciting things happening with EOS University actually becoming a physical space as well. So I'd appreciate maybe to have a chat about that again sometime.
Oh yeah, that's great. I heard about that when you had an interview with EOS San Diego with Kent.
Yeah.
So,
and it is linked from our website as well. EOSUniversity.io has its own website because it is a separate entity, but it's linked from our website. So anybody wants to learn more about that, they can go on that site and find out there.
Okay, great. Thank you, Roger. Thank you, Jim, for your time, and we'll have to do this again. So,
brilliant. That's great. Thanks for having us on.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate it.
All the best.
Thanks. Take care.